Thanks for putting this on the media.
Let's get to the brain trust now. This is generally that part of the Saturday afternoon where we bring in our guests to talk about a variety of different things. Zerlina Maxwell is a political analyst, also a contributor at thegrio.com. Syndicated columnist Bob Franken is here, and Amy Holmes, an anchor at The Blaze. Good to see all of you on a Saturday afternoon.
Hello, Craig.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bob's so spirited. He's so lively. I love it.
I feel like I'm being shunned.
Well, we've got no travel budget here, Bob. We can't get you in the studio.
Here at Detention Hall.
Zerlina, I want to start with you. This is a story that caught our eye from the Huffington Post. I think you've seen this as well. There's a woman named Danielle Powell. She was close to getting her bachelor's degree. She was kicked out of her university for being gay in 2012 and now says that the only way that the school will transfer her credits to another school is if she agrees to pay some $6,300. The school is Grace University. It's a Christian institution in Omaha. It has a student honor code, apparently, that they say bans any sexual activity outside of marriage. The school, of course, stands by its decision. What do you think? What's your take?
I think Jesus needs new PR. I mean, that's every time I hear a story like this. No, really. I mean, every time I hear a story like this, I think back to Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I mean, we need to get to a point where we aren't discriminating against gay people just because of who they love. And this student started this institution as a Christian and then later fell in love with a woman, and she shouldn't be kicked out and then not given her transcripts when she's trying to just move on with her life.
Bob, I do, in the interest, obviously, here of being fair, I want to throw up the statement here from the school. The school's president did say in a statement Friday, quote, "While we are under no legal obligation to do so, from the very beginning we have been and remain willing to provide transcripts and transfer the students' credits. Grace University is run on biblical principles, therefore we do not employ collection agencies or take legal action, nor do we report to credit agencies. Our policy is to notify the student of the debt, and we believe it is up to the student to uphold his or her Christian obligations." We should also note here that there's been a petition to have the school forgive Powell's debt. There's been about 34,000 signatures so far. This petition happened after some video of Powell proposing to her girlfriend was posted on YouTube. The couple is now married. What's your take here, Bob? Is the school right?
Well, first of all, this whole issue, the school apparently is recognizing the PR problems here, but this whole issue is really rooted in the fact that universities, if they're going to get federal aid, they must comply with the Civil Rights Act. Unfortunately, the Civil Rights Act does not cover gays. Gay rights are not considered civil rights. Only in recent times has that become a concept that people are beginning to embrace.
I'm always interested in your take on social issues, Amy Holmes. And this is a social issue. What say you?
Indeed it is. Well, I'm of two minds. First of all, this is a private university. They had a very clear code of conduct for all students. As you mentioned, no sex outside of marriage, which to me doesn't sound like very much fun in college. But these students, they made their own choice to sign a contract by mutual agreement to abide by these values and principles. And presumably, no one forced Danielle to go to this university. On the other hand, and I don't want to get too theological about it because I'm not a religious person, there is such a thing as Christian charity, and it seems to me that if these two parties realize, you know what, this isn't a good fit, that both of them can part amicably, and she can move on with her life, and Grace University can move on with theirs.
And I would also imagine that at some point there would probably be someone who comes forward and says, "Here's a check."
I would imagine so.
If it hasn't happened already.
So.
Yes.
Let's pivot here. I want to talk about something that we like to talk about a lot here. Hillary Clinton, center stage Thursday, former Secretary of State joining her husband Bill at the Clinton Global Initiative meeting Thursday in the Windy City. Look at that hug. She captured the room when she talked about the role of women. Take a listen.
When women participate in the economy, everyone benefits. This also should be a no-brainer. When women participate in peacemaking and peacekeeping, we are all safer and more secure. And when women participate in politics, the effects ripple out across society.
Does she look and sound like a candidate, Zerlina?
Yes, I mean, she's running for president. I'll make a bet on that right now. Maybe $10. I can afford 10. But she's running for president, and who better to speak to those issues that are impacting American families than an out feminist, right? I mean, we're talking about the war on women all the time because there is an attack on our rights, and I am looking to Hillary to speak to those issues.
Bob, when you saw her this week in Chicago, and when of course we saw Chris Christie there as well, did you think this is a president in training or what?
Well, I think that both of them were. I mean, to me, the headline of this conference is not the appearance by Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I mean, she's, after all, married to the guy who was running it. But you certainly couldn't say that about Chris Christie. And there you had him. He and Mr. Bill sitting there, and they had like a 40-minute conversation about things and clearly get along. It could be a very interesting presidential race in a few years if both of them run.
Amy, the scene, that particular scene really was quite bizarre if you think about it.
Indeed, it wasn't. Actually, Bill Clinton, he suggested that for Christie to hang out with him was like hanging out with a leper, which I thought was sort of interesting in terms of, extremities falling off when it comes to Bill Clinton.
No. I mean, it's true because in the primary, that video is going to be in every ad against Chris Christie.
It'll be right behind the video of him walking the Jersey Shore with President Obama. Quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about what Richard Engel was just talking about. Assistance going to the rebels. Is it going to do anything at all to tip the balance of power on the battlefield? Brain Trust after this. The Brain Trust is back. Zerlina Maxwell from thegrio.com, syndicated columnist Bob Frank, and Amy Holmes from The Blaze. Bob, let me start with you. Let's talk about Syria here for a second. Of course, it's going to top the agenda when President Obama heads to Belfast Sunday to meet with G8 leaders. How do you think the president's plan to supply small arms to the Syrian opposition will be received at the G8?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people who are very worried, and for good reason. That would include the president himself. He has been very concerned about doing this, and well, he should be, because it's such a morass. A longtime friend of mine, Robin Wright, who's a superb journalist, has written a piece for Time magazine when she says that what this really has become is a battle by proxy between Hezbollah and al-Qaeda, and that's exactly the problem. When you support the rebels, you run a real risk that the weaponry, whatever it is you provide, ends up in the hands of people who are sworn enemies of the United States.
Amy, let's talk about this weaponry for a second. Lots of folks over the past few days have really talked about how this is essentially the United States giving a bunch of knives to some folks to go fight in a gunfight.
Right, and there's actually been a lot of confusion over what this inventory list would be. Are we talking about night vision goggles, as you say, like sort of minor things? What I really think this is about the president's credibility. He set out a red line, and if chemical weapons were used, then that would be Assad crossing that red line. Well, you know what? Now he's got to put up, because President Obama said that this would be intolerable. So I think he's doing basically the bare minimum in order to enforce that red line that doesn't get the United States drawn into a regional conflict.
So how real is the threat that the president and his administration will be dragged into some sort of prolonged quagmire in Syria?
Oh, I don't think it'll be prolonged. I certainly agree with you, though, that he did make an explicit statement that there is a red line. We've crossed it. Now what is he going to do? But this also leads me back to we need a Congress that's working and functional as well, because we need checks and balances when these situations in foreign policy come up and there's the potential for a prolonged conflict.
What more could Congress have done in this particular situation?
In this particular case, if we get to the point where there is a prolonged conflict, obviously they have a duty then to pass legislation authorizing that conflict. And so
but the president would have to come to Congress to ask for that authorization. Right. Also, this idea of the no-fly zone, I just want to make everyone aware what that requires, which is we would have to enforce it. So if Assad put his planes up, that means our planes have to shoot them down.
And it would also require approval by the Security Council. And Russia has... Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was going to also talk about the no-fly zone, which would be the next step when this doesn't work. Notice I said when as opposed to if. But a no-fly zone, which was successful in Iraq, would not be as successful here, because Syria has a very sophisticated air defense system, and we could have some casualties.
And Bob, also, I mean, the fact that Russia continues to be a thorn in the diplomatic side and the military side as well, I guess, in this particular instance. Any chance that this is resolved diplomatically at the G8 or after?
Well, there is going to be a sideline meeting between Vladimir Putin and the president at the G8, and then subsequent get-togethers. So one can only hope that there is some sort of movement. But this is getting to the point where really it's beyond the point of no return.
All right, up next, we're going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to crown this week's biggest brain. It's a tremendous honor, perhaps the biggest honor on cable news on a Saturday afternoon between the hours of 3 and 4. We'll be right back. And now, as promised, we're going to let one of our regular Brain Trust guests have a moment, time to find out who the biggest brain among our Brain Trust is. And this week, if for no other reason alone, the phrase, Jesus needs new PR. Jesus needs new PR gets the...
You didn't like my leopard joke?
No, I did not like your leopard joke. Zerlina Maxwell, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much.
Well, there we go.
This is a heartfelt message from one rape survivor to Senator Carl Levin. Senator, you have betrayed me and all other survivors of sexual violence. This week, you took out the essential provision in Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's bill, the Military Justice Improvement Act, that would move the prosecution of sexual assault outside of the chain of command. You blocked this provision, and we demand answers. Senator, why have you taken the side of the rapists? There is plenty of evidence that shows that the status quo is unacceptable and victims are re-victimized by a process which sweeps their rapes under the rug and refuses to hold the perpetrators accountable for their crimes. Senator, rape is a crime. It is illegal. This is not about someone being too sensitive or being harassed. This is about an act of violence that inside and outside the military should be dealt with in a serious manner. As Senator Gillibrand has said, when a victim of sexual violence is forced to salute her attacker, clearly our system is broken. Senator, what you have done is outrageous and unacceptable. You have put yourself squarely on the side of the rapists. You have picked a side. Are you sure you want to stay there?
Zerlina Maxwell, I know that was tough.
Yeah.
So,
a little bit tough, but
yeah.
It's important and I wanted to say it.
And we should note here, Senator Gillibrand says that she is not going to stop the fight. This is something that she is going to continue to push. What do you think is behind Senator Levin's reluctance?
Patriarchy and misogyny. I think that too often we are not holding the rapists accountable, and anytime you're doing something to not hold them accountable, you're on their side, and that's not where he should be.
Bob, I want to get your take on this as well, because this is something that has plagued the military for some time now, and it's a problem that, quite frankly, not only has it not gotten better, it's gotten worse.
Well, to me, what is so ludicrous about this is there were so many years of caterwauling over what would happen when people who were openly homosexual were in the military, and it turns out that the big problem is by the heterosexuals. I mean, I think that this is a growing problem. The military is just not able to handle this. By the way, I did want to point out that as the father of a daughter, this is something that causes me to strongly support what we just heard. And if you don't mind, I'll do a little Father's Day shout out to my daughter, Jessica. She's a great kid, and she is proof that the acorn can fall far from the tree.
Bob,
so there's hope.
Bob Franken, you know what? We're going to leave it there on this Father's Day Eve. A big thanks to you. A big thanks to Amy Holmes as well. And a really big thanks today to Zerlina Maxwell as well, our biggest brain from thegrio.com. And thank you so much for watching on a Saturday afternoon. I'll be back